Good morning, everyone. What a wonderful day it is, right? So, today's topic is something that you will never miss in your life because you're going to have this conflict for the rest of your life. Most importantly, you probably will have conflict with yourself. Okay. So, we call this the inner conflict. Then, of course, you will have a conflict in your relationship with someone that you are in love or in friendship, or there is no way that you can escape conflict that's going to happen in your life when you're working because your interest and someone else's interest in the workplace going to be contradicting, and that is definitely going to create a conflict between you and others, your team and other team, or maybe your department with other department, and at the larger scale, your company and other companies. So conflict is going to be bits and parcel of every aspect of your life. Okay. So today we're going to look into why this conflict happened. What are the fundamental elements that hiding behind this conflict? What are the conflict resolution strategies? There are 5 conflict resolution strategies. Then we're going to take a look at how and where do you belong? In what way you can master these 5 conflict resolution strategies. Then use them appropriately if and when there is a conflict happen in your life. Okay. So as usual, this is the learning objective. Let's move on from here. So what is this conflict? Okay. The definition of conflict is straightforward. It says it is a process that begins when one party perceives that another party is negatively affected or is about negatively affect something that is first party cares about. That means I'm the first party here, right? I'm the first party. So I now believe that you are affecting me. My personal interest is affected, or maybe I affecting you, either way. So as long as there are 2 parties, and if they think that their personal interest is compromised or affected, then the conflict will come. Okay. So if there is no one aware of a conflict, then we say, okay, no problem. Okay, it's not a big deal at all. But if one party believes that the other party is not being fair to me, or if both parties feel that they are not being fair to each other, then the conflict will definitely will happen. So it's all about incompatibility and interactions, the way that we are going to deal with it. So normally, whenever we talked about conflict, there are 2 types of conflict. There is one is functional conflict, another one is a dysfunctional. Okay. So what is the conflict? Functional conflict. So functional conflict is a good conflict, I would say. Okay. Because with that conflict, it may create tension, then it may allow the performance of those parties goes up. Sometimes even the managers, they purposely create some functional conflict to bring the best out of the team members. Okay. In my life, my boss happens to do that. He always create 2 teams to compete each other for the same resources, and also he will see which team performs better for a better outcome. Okay. So somehow we know that boss is actually making us clash with each other on purpose. So it's called the functional conflict. So functional conflict, if you can manage it well, then you get the benefit out of it. But of course, there's always a danger that the functional conflict can go into the negative mode, that if can elevate to the level of uncontrollable state, then the conflict is definitely negative. So conflict, and on the other side, there will be some conflict that, uh, hidden. So people don't know, or maybe that is hinder the group performance because they are against each other so much, they are not even cooperating or collaborating. And that now, the negative conflict is called the dysfunctional or destructive form of conflict. So conflict happen all the time, positive or negative. Ideally, if we can use the positive conflict to get the benefit out of it, that's good. But somehow, what will happen is that if the conflict go into dysfunctional or destructive, that's where the danger is, right? So conflict and the performance You can see the direction here. So unit performance means individual or as well as what they call members here. This diagram clearly shows that at the early level of conflict, the performance will go up because people want to compete with each other, right? So it's become the functional conflict, and the performance will give you a very high performance because the level of conflict is optimal. That means enough conflict there to bring the best out of the members involved. Again, as I said, same like stress, we will see another chapter here. Same like stress, we will see that up to certain level, conflicts are always going to be beneficial. Conflict definitely going to be beneficial. But what will happen is that after a sustainable long period of time, the same conflict will turn out to be something negative. That's when the performance will go down. So as a leader, as a manager of the organization, we must be able to manage this level of conflict, keep it at the optimal level, And at this time, it is still functional. Right? But the moment it is prolonged, then you can see the red color line. It's become a disruptive and what you call destructive, okay, conflict. So we must always be mindful of that. So when these conflict things happen in organization, so there are three types of conflict that happen that we can identify in organization. And also we will see the three loci. Loci means where the conflict, what level the conflict happened. So there are three types of conflict. Conflict number one is task conflict. Conflict number two are relationship conflict. Conflict number three are process conflict. So you see, the task conflict is where you and I don't agree with what we are doing. Okay. So we may have conflict of, for instance, my head of department, if he or she approved the leave, okay, then she said no to my application, but her head of department, the dean, can always cancel her no and he may approve my leave because he realized that I need to take the leave. But now my boss, my immediate boss says, no, I said no to him because I want Mehan to do something. Okay, without finishing it, he cannot take leave. So now the task of approval my leave between my head of department and my dean may create conflict between them because they don't agree with each other. So we call that as a task conflict. Relationship conflict to me is going to be the worst and most common one. Okay, because it's about not about what you call just the job that you do. You simply don't like people. Maybe the personality incompatibility, or maybe the speed of your doing things, maybe the way that you do things, or maybe just simply the way you talk. So it happens in our life, right? Sometimes you just don't like people because of their faces. So which is a bad thing to do, but it happens, right? So somehow people do not get connected with each other, and that will cause you relationship conflict, particularly if both party or one party feel that one is taking advantage of the other. So relationship conflict in the workplace is definitely one of the most common one. Then of course the process conflict. Okay, how the work, how to get the work done. Okay, some people they may be collective mode. Some people like in your team. Okay, when you're doing a project and everything, how your team members are doing your work different way. So that probably will cause like, I might say that, okay, I don't have to be physically there. So when the time comes, I'll submit my work. But the other team members think that, no, it cannot. Because just sit here, let's put all the points together and settle it together. So you see, the process of your doing work itself can create conflict. This is my bulletproof coffee that I'm mentioning. Coffee, butter, MCT or coconut oil, yeah, and also a little bit of turmeric. Okay, this is where the conflict happened. So loci of conflict means where where the conflict happens. Okay, so again, there are three places where the conflict happen. So didactic conflict is conflict between two people. Conflict between two people. That means it's straightforward. I don't like my staff. That's it. I don't like my colleague. It can happen. Okay. Intra-group conflict happens within a group or team. So that means you have a team. So now the conflict happen between the team members. So we call that intra-group. But sometimes it also happens the intergroup conflict. Intergroup conflict is where, right? Team A and team B, they are not agreeing with each other. So remember, there are three things between two people, between people in the same team, and between team. Okay. As I mentioned, there's also another level of conflict. Yeah, it's called inner conflict. All of you will have that. I have that all the time as well. Okay, it's about inner conflict. The way how things are, about the way that you're not happy with some of the decision that you're making. So maybe you feel frustrated with your life, or even sometimes you don't even know what to wear. You know, when you go and stand up front of your cupboard and you don't know which dress or which shirt to wear, because both also looks nice, you know, and whatnot. So very mild inner conflict. But most importantly, about, let's say, when you decide to choose your career, okay, a bit of conflict. Okay, whether you want to go and do something that you like, or you prepare to do something that you don't like, somehow you are willing to compromise their interest because that won't be a higher salary. So now you have got a value conflict. So these are the issues of what we call as the low key of conflict. Okay, so that brings us to the conflict process. The conflict process, as you can see, there are 5 stages of conflict, how it happens. Let me walk you through this one. The conflict. Stage 1 is where, whenever we talk about conflict, is a potential oppositions or incompatibility. I already mentioned it. You can feel the tension is there because there are two people or people within the group or intergroup, they do not agree with each other because, you know, it's just that, you know, you don't like what the other person is saying or doing. Okay. So now this is where the communication, that is very important. You have to communicate properly your intention and also your desire. Okay. And how you set up the whole structure, and maybe your personal variable, your personality, your the way that you talk and whatnot. All these will eventually, that's a very beginning of the stage of the conflict. Yeah. It's not full-blown conflict yet. But the second stage is where the issue going to be. It is at the two level. This is what we call as the cognition and personalization. It's what's happening in your head right now. Then how you perceive the conflict, whether or not you are taking it personally or not. That's why it's called cognition and personalization. At this level, it's a perceived conflict. You think that there is a conflict, or it's a felt conflict. You know there is a conflict. So you must identify, but both are dangerous. Perceived conflict, that you think there is a conflict. Felt conflict is that the conflict is happening. Your friend is not coming to you. Your friend is not talking to you. So that means it's a felt conflict. Perceived conflict is that you're just assuming that. Then at the stage 3, this is where you have to be ready to deal with the conflict. So this is where the 5 levels, okay, 5 tactics of dealing with conflict comes in. Either you are competing, I'll explain this separately later, whether you are competing to solve your problem, conflict, or you're collaborating to solve a conflict, or you just compromise, just give in to solve a conflict, or you are the type that you keep running away, you avoid having conflict in your life, or sometimes you accommodate tapala, biala, it's okay la, you know. So are you that kind of the person? So this is where we're going to focus later, because whenever we talk about conflict topic, this is where the key here, the conflict handling method or resolution. Then once you go through that one, okay, this is where the overt conflict, what happened after that? Okay, maybe sometimes because of the conflict, you become even closer with each other because you understand each other even better, right? All right. So, or maybe people will be rejecting you, or you may be rejecting others. So whatever it is, this is the result of the way that you, what do you call, manage your conflict will create the reaction from other people. Okay, definitely other people. Let's say, for instance, you are competing. Okay, so when you're competing, that means the other party may not be happy with you. But let's say you are the type that you are compromising. Then the other party say, it's okay. I think since Mehan is compromising, I will compromise too. Then they will come to the middle point. So whichever it is, depending on their behaviors and reactions, now it might increase. It might increase the performance of the team, or it might decrease the performance of the team. So it's called manifested conflict. So you can see here that every conflict will go through these 5 stages. Every conflict definitely will go through 5 stages. This is where we got to understand how do you deal with your conflict. There are 5 ways of dealing with conflict. One is competing, second is collaborating, third is avoiding, fourth is accommodating and compromising. So what we're going to do now, we're going to watch a video on this topic. Then after that, I'll come back. I will explain to you even more. Okay, so get ready, watch the video.
Each of us develops our own approach to managing conflict. This would be called our personal conflict management style. It's how we deal with negotiations, and it's formed early in life and is grounded not only in our personality, but in our experiences that we develop over time as we learn more and more from dealing with conflicts that arise. Because we tend to rely on a preferred conflict management style, that can be a strength because we have experience with it, but it can also create a vulnerability when we don't use the appropriate conflict management style for the situation. There's no best way to deal with conflict, and I think you'll find as a leader that you're going to have to find what works in certain situations. This really is the art part of being an effective leader. As we think about the different conflict management styles, we can put these on an assertiveness versus cooperativeness scale. Let's start with the avoiding conflict style. In this particular case, the parties to the conflict may just choose to not engage. In that case, low assertive, low cooperativeness doesn't require the active participation of either party, and that would be the avoiding style. To borrow the language from Stephen Covey, this would be the equivalent of the lose-lose solution to resolving the conflict. As we move up the assertiveness scale, we come to the forcing style. Here, the person with the greater power will enforce a decision on others around him to resolve the conflict. You should recognize in this particular style the connections to communication and to power and influence. This would be a closed communication style and would be probably a retribution style of power and influence. In the Stephen Covey language, this would be the win-lose solution. As we approach the accommodating style, this would be low assertiveness, high cooperativeness. This literally is giving in to a decision maker in resolving the conflict. This, in the Stephen Covey language, would be the lose-win solution. As we think about compromise, here each party to the conflict gets something out of it, but not fully satisfied. In this particular context, I like to call this the half-win, half-win solution. As we think of being high on the assertive scale, high on the cooperative scale, these are situations where both parties are intensely interested in coming up with a solution that's acceptable to both. In the Stephen Covey language, this would be the win-win solution. With these conflict management styles in mind, let's take a look at some of the consideration that go into selecting the appropriate conflict management style for the situation. The first of these might be the level of importance of the issue at hand. Is it important? Is it not? We might choose a style based on preserving the relationship between the parties. If the relationship importance is high, then we might choose one style over another. What's the relative power? Is the decision maker high or low in power compared to other parties involved in the negotiation? And how urgent is resolving the situation? If it's very urgent, we might choose one style over another. So let's begin by examining each of the conflict resolution styles. We start with forcing. In this particular case, this might be used in situations where the issue is extremely important, the maintaining the relationship concern is not important right now, but might be later, the relative power is high, and there are time constraints, significant time constraints. What this begins to look like is a style that might be used in a crisis situation where the leader has to be directive in nature to get conflict resolved. As I said before, this in the Covey language would be the win-lose solution. So there are potential consequences if this is used frequently over a long period of time, as it may damage relationships. Let's now move on to the accommodating style. This would be used in circumstances where the issue's importance is relatively low, where it's important to preserve harmony in the relationship, where the relative power differences are low, and we're not overly constrained by the amount of time available. This might be used in a circumstance where one party concedes to the other and is typically referred to in the Covey language as a lose-win solution. Now we move on to the compromising style of conflict resolution. This might be used in circumstances where the relative importance of the issue is medium importance of maintaining a relationship, equal power differences, and low time constraints. So in this particular solution, it's important that both parties come out of the negotiation with something, and therefore is referred to as the half-win solution. Compromise is going to be an important one in many circumstances where each of the parties feels like they got something out of the negotiation. As we move on to the collaborating style, this will be a style that is most appropriate when the issue is extremely high importance to both parties, where managing the relationship in such a way that it is not damaged and is preserved is extremely important. There may or may not be a power difference involved, and as a result, this is going to look a lot like supportive communication, and where you have ample time to resolve differences. This takes a great deal of negotiating skill and will take time to implement, so may not be appropriate in a crisis situation. We finally come to the avoiding style. Here, typically, the issue may be low importance. The parties just choose not to fight over something that's not important. Where the relationship difference or preserving the relationship isn't particularly important, where the power differences might be equal, and moderate time constraints. Sometimes we just choose not to engage in conflict over an issue that is of low importance, and that's typical of the avoiding style. However, this can be a severe problem if the issue actually is of greater importance and over the long term results in building of tension and frustration that can show up later on in dysfunctional ways. So, when preserving relationships is extremely important, it ought to be obvious by now that the collaborating style is going to be the preferred method of resolving conflict. We'll devote some attention to that in the next lesson.
Okay, I hope you have learned a lot from what you call this video. This is probably one of the best video that actually explain the 5 levels of things. They use the word forcing into differently from this our textbook. Here we are talking about competing, but the same. Forcing and competing is the same. It's about what they call you win-lose. You go into a conflict, you don't care about the other person, you just want to win. Okay, so it's called forcing level. But of course, on the other side, you're talking about the collaborating. Collaborating is the highest one. That is a win-win situation. So both parties go in there because they want to give and take and to win. Okay. And of course, if there's one thing that you ask me, it's okay to compromise, but don't compromise too long, because one day you'll get frustrated, because compromise means, remember, whenever we use the word compromise means you are giving in. You are giving in. So it's okay to compromise at the early stages to the right people, okay? But if you continuously to compromise, then one day you'll get frustrated, then the compromise will never happen. So I really don't like to use the word compromise, but you will never know sometimes, right? It's okay, but not overdo it. But if there's one thing that you don't want me to do, it's avoiding and accommodating. Well, I mean, what are you going to do? Avoiding can be at the highest level of realizations that you said it's not worth the fight, it's not worth the conflict. I said, F it, then you just move on. Okay, that's fine. But if you avoid because you dare not confront the other person, that means the problem never go away. The problem never go away. The problem will be always will be there. So sometimes you better deal with it. So sometimes you better deal with it, and whatever happens. Okay, so that's what it is. So but some cases I do avoid conflict. If somebody come and what do you call, try to pick a fight with me when I'm driving with my family, I'll just avoid. I just raise my hand, I'll just go away. What I don't want any kind of conflict on the road. So that's one thing. And the worst thing is accommodating. So accommodating is where you sacrifice yourself. You sacrifice yourself just to get the other party happy. No, never do that. Never do that. It could be some strategic movement, that's fine, but never ever do that all the time. Okay. So these are the five ways of looking at it. All right. So this is where the next topic of conflict intensity continuum. Okay. So no conflict, no issue at all. So there's a minor level of disagreement, misunderstanding. You can deal with it, and sometimes overt questioning and challenging of others. So I mean, you just concerned, but like in relationship, then one person is overly asking questions and all the time asking questions about where about you, what you're doing, the way that you're doing. It can definitely create conflict as well. Then attacking, verbal, assertive, saying no, yes, agree, and sometimes some unwanted words are being spoken and whatnot. Then go to the next level of threat and ultima. If you don't do it, there is no way that the team going to function. I'm going to quit. That's what that the threat. I didn't want to be in the team. Okay, just enough. Okay, done. So you're giving that by Friday. If you're not done, so I'll kick you out. So you started to give threats and everything. Then sometimes it may turn into a physical attacks. People go into punch up and stuff like that. That is the level that we want to avoid. That then worse is not only punch up. People can take this into the next level of destroying the other person because of conflict. We have seen, we have seen so many times that a small incident, okay, minor incident in the on the roadside, people don't give in to another person. Okay, what happened? They get down, they start to fight, they beat each other, and people die. Okay, so this is where you need emotional intelligence better. Don't go there, don't go there. Try to um, talk it out, try to have a clear understanding about what the other person feels, then you can solve the conflict much better. So conflict management technique, as I can say, okay, we have talk about this, problem solving is the key. Face to face, solve the problem, identify what is the root cause of the problem, talk about it, okay. Open discussion is the key here. Subordinate goals, always find out who is your boss and what your boss, he or she wants from you, okay. So because if your big bosses have a goal that it cannot be achieved, it's going to be a problem. So always communicate to the boss and ask your boss what does he or she really want. And maybe sometimes you can expand the resources that are available so people don't compete against each other to get that resources. um Sometimes, as I said, avoidance is okay, is still a tactic, because you just don't want to get involved in a problem, the thing. Smoothing is where the issue of sit together, find out why the friction is, and make each other understand, okay, about the conflict that we have, which can be avoided. Eventually said, oh, shoot, it's just a misunderstanding, Compromise, okay, give in a bit here and there, no issue, right? So give something of your value to the process. But again, as I said, don't overdo it, and don't do it for a long period of time. And of course, beyond this is the authoritative command. The management will come out, okay, enough, stop here, go ahead to the next level. So the management can, what you call, stomp their feet and end the conflict. Altering human variables, okay, maybe changing your techniques may help to solve the problem. It's not about people don't want that kind of outcome. It's about they don't like the way you're dealing with it. So maybe you have to change the way you deal with the issue, change the way you talk for that matter, change your behavior. That actually can help us. Maybe the structural variables, so where the problem is being tackled. So this is where the structure, changing the organization structure, making that decision-making process to the level of people are not going to resist, definitely going to be helpful. Okay. Um, communications going to be the key towards solving a problem. Okay. And sometimes we bring in outsiders to come as a mediator. Okay, mediator, they help us to come and solve the problem. It happens. Mediation is definitely going to be helpful, and mediator will look for solutions that is neutral, not biased to both parties. Then if we agree to follow the mediator, I think the outsider's help is definitely going to be very helpful. Or maybe restructure the organizations. Okay, take away the work and take away the process, put it separately so they don't clash with each other. And I like this one, appointing a devil's advocate. Advocate is a lawyer, yeah. Devil's advocate is that I am with you, but I will be asking question as if what our opposition lawyer will ask later. Okay, we agree already. This is the case. We know that we have got this on. But now we are thinking during the court process, what the lawyer will be asking us, where he will be focusing on this. Okay, so now I will play the role. I will play that opposition lawyer during our discussion, behaving like that lawyer, asking our very own solutions. We call that a devil's advocate. Devil's advocate is that I'm your friend, we are team members, but now I am playing the role as oppositions just to challenge your understanding, our understanding, challenge our facts, challenge our process, challenge our decisions. I will challenge it as if that I'm opposition. So this actually will bring about a clarity of our decisions. Okay, clarity of decision. So now, as we discuss, remember, conflict can become constructive. It can become useful if it is improve the quality of our decision, stimulates creativity because everybody is trying to compete with each other, innovations, okay, maybe curiosity. Maybe the problem can be solved because now we have given an opportunity to talk about our problems, and why not, right? But but it also can become destructive. Okay, it's definitely can become destructive. When it's become destructive, it's breed discontent. People are against each other, and also reduces group effectiveness. The team is not functioning well, and sometimes it also can what you call destroy the group survival itself. Okay, so how to manage this functional conflict as a manager, as a leader? How you can do that? So your job is to minimize the counterproductive conflict. So if there is a conflict that is bringing the team going down, you have to be alert. You have to be very alert when there is a disagreement that's going to turn out to be a violent or also, as I said, offensive. As a leader, you have to stop it. Okay, so there are so many techniques that we watched earlier, so you can actually bring about that one, because a successful conflict management by you as a manager, as a leader, will actually encourage an open and a frank discussion. And you know what? Now, after the conflict, people in the team can grow better because now they understand each other better, And also there are new ideas that come about this and whatnot. So the most important thing is that can we allow the sharing of opinion openly, okay, as a manager. So there's a phrase normally people use, agree to disagree. So I, okay, may not have, I don't have to agree with you, okay, but I understand that you have your view. So this is where the communication comes in. So let's talk about issues openly without being personal about it, because you're talking about a job here. Okay. So as a manager, you really, really have to, what you call, play that role. All right, play that role to make sure that everything is open. There is no underlying issues that people are not talking about it, but they go taking actions behind your back and also what you call destroying each other. Ultimately, this is where the conflict resolution comes in. Different countries will have a different ways of conflict resolutions. Okay, in Japanese culture, which is a collective culture, they like to sit with each other, embed it in a social situation. Sometimes some of the conflicts they cannot solve it in the office. They'll go for a drink, night, maybe bar or their cultural drink, and they'll talk about that one. Okay, but in some countries where individualistic, they have to solve the problem here and there. It's not that they're angry, but looks like they are fighting with each other. But you know what? They are not fighting each other. They actually deal with the problem as they, what they call, want to find a solution here. So conflict management is definitely one of the skill that you must have. You must have, right? Look at that 5 areas of conflict management. Which one is you are, what you call, comfortable? Are you the one that competing or forcing? Are you the one that avoiding? Are you the one that accommodating? Or are you the one is collaborating? Or maybe are you the one that like to compromise? These are the 5 areas of conflict resolution. Then you have to master all, because you have to change it according to the situation. So definitely conflict management skill is a skill that you should master in order for you to improve your personal and also your relationship and your what do you call, professional success in life. Go ahead and find out more about these conflict management skills. uh, you will never know, right? You will never know how this thing going to help you progress in your life. Okay.